Good evening, and welcome to Beyond the Notes with Shelby D. Bogney. I am Erica Lawrence, and I have the pleasure of introducing you to our host of Beyond the Notes. There will be time for Q&A at the end of the program so that we can capture all of your questions. We ask that you please put them into the chat. Now, I'd like to introduce our host and the creator of Shelby's Sticky Notes to you, Shelby D. Bogney. Your host is a powerhouse executive, a culture strategist, and a dynamic leader who knows how to go far beyond the surface. Shelby D. Bogney brings decades of experience leading human resources and diversity at some of the world's most recognized organizations, including the Walt Disney Company, McDonald's Corporation, the Home Depot, and the International House of Pancakes. Today, she serves as Senior Vice President of People and Culture at the Music Center in Los Angeles, one of the largest performing arts centers in the nation. A proud graduate of Howard University, she also holds a master's in human resources from Pepperdine University and is a SHRM Senior Certified Professional and member of the National Association of Corporate Directors. But her story doesn't stop in the boardroom. Shelby is also a 38-year life member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, where she most recently served as Far Western Regional Director, leading 77 chapters across 9 states and launching the region's first ever Leadership Institute. And as a wife, mother, mentor, and leader, she understands that the real story, the real impact, lives beyond the titles. So get ready, because this is more than a webinar. This is Beyond the Notes. Tonight, we're joined by 2 future-focused technology executives, Jameeka Green-Aaron and Jerry Walker. Jameeka Green-Aaron is a managing director of technology at Emerson Collective, where she leads engineering, cybersecurity, enterprise IT, and cloud strategy under one vision, using technology to advance mission and deepen impact. A recognized industry leader, she brings more than 25 years of experience across aerospace and defense, retail, manufacturing, and technology, with roles spanning Fortune 100 companies, privately held organizations, and the US Navy. Her career includes leadership at Headspace, Nike, Lockheed Martin, Okta, and Emerson Collective, and she currently serves as a board member of Digital Brands Group and an advisor for Bain Capital Cyber. Jerry Walker is a transformational chief information officer with more than 2 decades of experience modernizing complex public sector, nonprofit, and private sector organizations. As CIO of the Oregon State Treasury, he leads technology strategy, cybersecurity, and organizational modernization for an agency responsible for safeguarding more than $400 billion in annual revenue and assets. He has driven a 2.5-year enterprise-wide digital transformation, spanning more than 140 applications and 30 million annual banking transactions, following prior CIO leadership with the City of St. Louis Office of Treasurer, where his modernization efforts increased recurring revenue, uncovered revenue, and reduced operating costs. We have some good panelists, y'all. Please note that we will be recording Shelby's workshop this evening to share with those of you that are members of Shelby's Sticky Notes group. And if you're not a member just yet, we'll share contact information at the end of the call so you can join. Now, I will turn it over to Shelby so that we can all get an answer to the burning question. Did AI just take my job?
Thank you, and welcome to everyone this evening. I am excited about our panel of experts. These 2 are going to answer all your questions. And did AI just take my job? So, Jameeka, are you ready to go? Jerry, are you ready to go?
We're ready.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Let's go.
Do want to start for both of you. So I'd like for both of you to answer this. And Jerry, we're going to start with you. So can we
Okay.
just get to the big question? Did AI actually take jobs, or is it changing jobs?
Um, so yes, it's changing a lot of jobs for sure, right? Is it taking jobs? Not like what people believe it is right now, right? Um, it's when you think about it, for those of us that have been in the IT space for many years, such as Jameeka and myself, what we'll tell you, we've seen this before, right? This is a cycle that we've seen over and over again. We've seen this when people were talking about let's go to the cloud. We saw this when people were like for those of us that dealt with Y2K and how our jobs were going to be taken. So this is just another one of those cycles that is happening right now that it just changes the function of your job. The job really doesn't go away. It's the function and how you do stuff. Back in the day, you used to have people that were their title literally was backup operators, and that was their title. That no longer exists, but you still have people doing that, but it's in a whole different fashion on how they do it, right? There's no more tapes, there's no backup tapes, there's nothing like that. Right now, everything is in the cloud. So it's like, can you put an architecture together to do a reliable, resilient backup strategy, right? And so the job just changed, and so this is happening, too. Now, is some of it replacing people? Um, it is, but I think right now, overall, the last I saw in the statistics was like it was less than 1% of the jobs that you see where people are being let go. That's actually because of Gen AI, right? It's not really because of that. It's more of an excuse right now for these organizations to uh, make money, right? To make their bottom line look better during the stock markets and the quarterly calls and stuff. So
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah. So, Jamaica, I guess I'll follow up with a different question for you then is, what's the biggest misconception then that people have about AI and job displacement?
I think there's some fear. It's a new technology, and there's always fear around new technology. And so I think, we get into these stances about new technologies. I'm not going to get that. I'm not going to get the new iPhone. I'm not going to get the new, and that is not the right posture to take in this particular instance. If anything, we have to dive into it. And there are many different ways to do that. And I think also what has happened that has caused that fear, rightfully so, is that AI has been introduced in our lives in a way that we are very unfamiliar with it. So you look at your cell phone, it's like, welcome, now you have AI. Well, you kind of always had it. What it is now is
Mhm.
that it has a persona. And so AI has names, it has Gemini and Claude. And so that feels more human like, that's intentional. And so the introduction of it feels more evasive to us. But I think in terms of has it actually taken jobs? No. But if you're an expert, then it is the thing that is going to make you out of this world with your expertise. And so if you take HR and AI and put them together, for example, it's going to help modernize how you manage the workforce. And it's going to take a lot of the monotonous work that you do, repetitive things. I'll give you an example. Our finance team are probably some of the number one users of AI. Can I do their job simply by having AI? No, I cannot. But can they do their job in a really spectacular way that eliminates some of the work? Yes, they can. And so they are wildly efficient. And that's really what companies are always looking for. When we think about margins and we think about the top line and the bottom line, companies are looking for efficiencies. And so if you are the person who has decided they are not going to use AI, I'll tell you, your coworker next to you is going to use AI, and they are going to be able to get results and turn things around much quicker than you can. And that is what will cost you your job.
Yep.
Yeah, so if, having said that, then what, skills or what do you think that is just uniquely human that if you were talking to someone and said, you know what, brush up on this skill, keep doing that, keep, making sure that you're expert in this, would there be some things that are just kind of uniquely human that you would recommend that those that are working or those that are about to get into the world of work would hone or sharpen?
So here's the wonderful thing about AI. First, get a free account so you can try it out. ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini includes it. So if you're a Galaxy or Google user, it's going to be included. Get your free account and ask that question to AI. Hey, I'm working. So this is the thing about AI, right? You can ask it questions and it will answer them very thoroughly for you for the most part. So you can ask AI, hey, I work in technology. Give me 10 things that I can do to improve efficiencies. It gets even better if you add more context. I work at this company in technology. Give me 10 things that I can do to improve efficiency of my work. It's going to tell you exactly what to do. And it's going to be well thought out, it's going to be current, and it's going to apply to you. And so, this is the thing about AI that those of us who are users already know. We give AI the problem and ask it to help us solve.
Yeah.
Wow. Ask
Yeah.
AI. What were you going to say, Jerry?
No, I totally agree with her, right? I'm a Gen Xer, right? So, I am still I'm in technology for sure, but I'm also the guy was I would rather you call me than text me, right? And so, but the one thing I think that of the things that Jameek just said, the most important thing that you need to learn right away is know how to prompt. That's really what you have to learn, first and foremost, how to prompt efficiently, not just, 3 or 4 words, but like Jameeka made, it's even better when you give it more detailed in your prompt, right? And then the more detail you give it, the better it becomes. I think that's the biggest thing. And and so for me, being a Gen Xer like that, that was one of the hardest things for me. It was just I'm so used to just doing really quick things, and so I was like, oh, then they ask you another question. Then I learned to I can give it everything it needs in one sentence, so I don't have to keep going back and forth because I don't like texting, and to me it feels like texting. So I try to do it all in one note, and usually I'm pretty successful at it. But I think more than anything, like one of the most important things is learn how to prompt along with the stuff that Jamaica just said, which is extremely important. And again, go to one of the Gen AIs and literally say, "Give me the best ways to prompt," or and it give you all that right back. Oh, okay, yeah, this is how you want to do it. So all of that's in there.
And
My
that's a different
goodness.
muscle. That's a different muscle, right? We're not used to asking a technology how to use it, but this is the best way to learn. And there are lots of classes out there that will charge you, but there are free classes as well. But the best way to learn to prompt is to just start. Just start. This is a technology that is really in that self-teaching, self-governing space right now. And so ask the AI. It will absolutely help you prompt.
So let me ask you, Jameeka and Jerry, how has using AI made you more efficient? What have you used or what do you use? And I really want to hear from both of you in your roles that it makes you more efficient.
So I'll give you one, right? Like and this is probably true for Jamaica too. Like we are, our days are filled with meetings, right? So you're in meetings after meetings after meetings after meetings after meetings. It is so nice when I can just go in there and say, and well, I taught my EA to do it 'cause she does it for me a lot, but to go in there and literally just say, please, set up the earliest available time for these 3 people to have a meeting about this and to talk about these things. And then what happens, it will automatically go out there and look at their calendars and see what times are available and what time I'm available, put it all together, send them an invite along with the agenda and the bullet points that we need to talk about, and then we're done, right? You know how long that used to take when you just have to do something as simple as try to look at everybody's calendar, line that all up between people and say, okay, well, they're really here and they're really here. And now it's just like you just tell it and they'll walk away from it. So it's things like that that makes it real efficient for like little simple things that your day-to-day type of stuff. And then there are other things that, like I have to analyze legal bills or documents that come through that have to deal with IT. It is so nice just to throw that in there and say, please summarize this bill, this 200-page bill, and the parts that are pertain to me dealing with this, and then it just brings that to you and says, oh, hey, it actually calls this out for you, your department about this, and then give you this. And I'm like, okay, great, I ain't have to go search for that, and then sometimes it give me a great response, or it already knows stuff, so it will say to me, you need to create a carve out because that's in previous, legislation. You didn't let this go through, and so it's stuff like that that it does for you. So I don't have to spend 3 or 4 hours looking through that. I literally spend about 10 minutes and I'm done. So
That is efficiency. Oh, wow. What about you, Jameeka? Is there something that really has brought about more efficiency in your job?
Performance evaluations.
Ah,
I listen, we all know, see, Jerry, you laugh. We all know that performance evaluations are
yeah.
very time consuming. So I'm in a new role now, but in my previous role, I put in all of the performance evaluations for my team that I had written for the past 2 years. And then I put high level comments in for what I wanted to give them as their performance evaluation this year, and it wrote them for me. What normally takes me about 30 hours took about 3 hours. And it had context. The other thing that I went back and did as we start to add security and add additional connectors to it where it can access data is I also take notes from my Zoom meetings. I have an AI note taker. And so I asked it to go and look at my calendar, pull in all the notes from one-on-ones that I had had with these individuals, and include any feedback into their performance evaluations. This team they all told me your performance evaluations were so thoughtful. And I was like, yes, they are thoughtful because I didn't get fatigued writing the last 12 of them. So there's that. The second thing
Yeah.
that I use it for is I ask it to go into my Google, my emails. Right now, it doesn't have the ability to delete emails because I'm using a different product, but I ask it to go into my emails, flag all of the junk mail for deletion. And it
Yep.
goes through my email and it flags all of the junk mail and puts it in a box where I can go through and delete it for me. And so it's spectacular in that way. The other thing that I have started to ask it to do is when I'm traveling, I will ask it to look at my calendar. And this is a very California thing. I will say I'm flying on this Delta Airlines flight out of LAX at this time. I live in Irvine. Tell me what time I need to leave to go to the airport, and it will track traffic all day long for me and send me little notes and say, you should be getting ready to leave because traffic looks like it's going to be bad. Now, does Google Maps do this? Yes, but does it talk to me and personalize things for me? No, it doesn't. And so
Yeah.
that's
Right.
really, and again, this is all prompting. And the way that you talk to it and the way that you train it is in your natural language. You can talk to it with your voice also, but prompting is something that you're just going to start to ask it questions and see how it performs for you.
Yeah.
And so all of these things, I learned these things on accident. I didn't go to a prompting class. I was like, let me see if I can get it to do this.
Same.
And then you just
Same.
tweak it. And
Yeah.
the other thing about AI is that AI is a people pleaser. And so it
Mm.
wants to do things well. So what you have to do is give it feedback, just like you would a human. And what I have found is that it gets better when I give it negative feedback. I don't like the way you wrote this. This isn't my tone. Soften this a bit. And so you have to give it that feedback as well. And that's when the model really starts to work well for
Yeah.
you.
And here's just another scenario that I use it for. And I just did this a few weeks back. So, because we are when it comes to cybersecurity, most of what we do is on the Microsoft security platform. And so there's a lot of security things in there. But as you all saw, and if anybody's in technology, you've been hearing a lot about Claude, Glasswing, Frontier AI, and stuff like that. A few weeks ago, I was able to go in there and say, hey, you know, give me the research notes to create an executive summary that I have to give to the treasurer and the deputy treasurer on Claude, Frontier and Glasswing, and what real potential, threats does it serve in our environment that I need to think about? And it created that whole thing for me, right? And
Wow.
all and right. And so once I got that, I was able to read, okay, this is a lot of stuff going on, and then get with my CISO and say, hey, what are we doing about this? And help me understand everything that's going on so I can have a clear picture of what's happening so then I can go back and say, hey, just to keep everybody aware of what's going on. And so now what happens, if I have an executive meeting every week, right? Once a week. And so in that executive meeting, they're looking to me to give an update on that at least once every other week. And so that makes it extremely easy for me where I'm not sweating and trying to get this and ready to go or anything like that the day before. Hey, give me an update, blah blah blah, and it comes up, and then I can give that. So that's the other way that it does it too when we're actually doing these things. Because when you're at this level, we're not too much in the details of the technology. We're more on the strategy and leadership side of it. So,
Right.
but that's another way I use it.
No, and I am seeing all of these questions, so I want to make sure that I can ask you this sort of one last question, and then we really are going to open it up for our audience because they have a ton, and I knew they would. Now, there is a dark side to
Yeah.
Yeah.
AI, and me being an HR executive, we know that applicant tracking systems, many of them are bringing in bias, and we really have to babysit those platforms. And here's the thing, regrettably, disproportionately, Black applicants are finding that they're not getting through the process. They're not getting through the system. And so you do, I know this is, we have to go back and look. We go back and make sure that we're not screening out the same type of person. But having said that, to both of you, what would you say to someone who's been applying for jobs, and they're getting these rejections because the machine is kicking them out? Is there a way around that? Is there something they can do to get past that?
So I think a couple of call outs before I try to answer it, because some of it I just don't know. AI makes me say I don't know a lot. And that's the nature of how new it is. But bias, this technology is built by humans who have biases. And so that bias is going to be built and baked into that technology. You can expect that. And a part of how we help the model learn is by using it. So for us as people of color, as Black people, when we decide that we don't want to engage with the technology, it doesn't learn who we are. And so that's something that I'll tell you, my chat GPT knows that it is Black. I had told it, you're Black. And so but the way that it now deals with me is very unique and very interesting because it's starting to learn the culture. And so that is one of the things that we have to do. Is there a lot that we can do about the applicant tracking system? At this time, no. And I
Right.
want to be honest about this because I don't want to give people false hope. Because we don't know what kind of AI it's built on top of, we don't know yet exactly what the outcomes are going to be. So what's going to happen is, like with did AI take my jobs? AI, people are going to start using it and thinking that they can take the human out of the loop. You can't.
Can't.
You have to have a human in the loop. And I think that in HR systems, we're learning that more quickly than some of our other systems. AI also has the propensity to hallucinate. And by hallucinate, we basically, it's a nice word for it tells lies.
Yeah.
And so we have to be very conscious that it will hallucinate in any task that it will perform. And so again, I'll give you an example. Last year, I asked it to create a Black History Month fact for me for every day of Black History Month. And some of the facts were made up. And so now I ask it to quote sources when I ask for things that are supposed to be factual information, and it will give me an answer with links. So the short version is, yes, we know this is happening. Yes, we have to solve for it. It is our responsibility to solve for it. And in the meantime, we also have to keep that human in the loop and that human on the loop.
Yes.
This is why
Thank
it's
you,
not going to
Jim.
steal your job because it's doing stuff like this.
Well, it can steal your job before you get a job. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much for that, both of you. I do want to turn it over to Lindsay, who's going to field these questions. And let's take it away, audience, because I know you've got a lot for them. Or is it you,
Yeah.
Erica? Sorry
I'm going
about
to
that.
step in. Yes. So thank you so much. It's been such a great conversation. We've seen a lot of action in the chat. So let's dive in. We touched on this just a bit, but what resources do you suggest we use to learn prompting and best practices? I know you said we didn't necessarily have to take a class, but is there somewhere that people can go or things to keep in mind when they are prompting these agents?
So Udemy is one of my favorites, Khan Academy, free. I think even Harvard is probably offering free courses on AI prompting. And so
Mhm.
that is what it is. It's called prompt engineering. That's what you want to learn. You don't need to know the rest of the stuff that they're offering. You need to learn how to prompt. And so there are tons of free courses, but I think Udemy is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I agree. Those are the same things. I was just looking for it and I don't see it, but I went and bought me a little bitty prompting book. I keep next to me because there are times where I'm just like, you know what, let me just look at this book real quick, because yes, I use computers all the time, but every now and then, sometimes, books kind of like sit with me a little bit different sometimes. So I'm looking for it, but I don't see it, but I keep a little book next to me and ask. Always ask if somebody's using it. How are you prompting? I mean, that's the best way to get really good information is ask people who are using it. I was in a meeting with Microsoft the other day, and I told them, I said, "Hey, how are y'all using it? I want to send me a set of prompts that y'all use." And they sent them to me, and I was like, "Oh wow, okay, I never would have thought to do that, right?" And so so that's the other way of doing it too. Ask people that find out who's as you're having conversation. Are you using that? How are you prompting it? And get those prompts, and they're reusable. You just got to add your piece into it, and it gets to know you better.
Thanks for sharing that. I know trying to learn from others is definitely great in this space. I know at work we use this acronym called CRAFT. So it's like your context, what are you giving the AI, the role that you want them to play, the audience that might be receiving the information, the format and how you want it delivered back, and then the text, like how do you want them to achieve a certain action, right? So definitely agree with like trying to learn from others to learn more in this space.
Yeah.
So one of the last questions that we asked was around like the getting hired in the job and interviewing. So what would make a candidate stand out in an interview when everyone has access to some of the same AI tools?
In an
I think,
interview.
Yes.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
I think that AI is still very new to all of us. Even as a technologist, as a chief technology officer, I don't expect people to have a broad skill set just yet, even though my team is in charge of AI. What I do expect is that you will be honest about your propensity and your willingness to learn. People are basically fronting right now, saying that they know how to do everything well. We're all learning at the same pace. And so what I expect is that you say that to us. I am learning at the same pace, but here are some of the tips and tricks that I've been using so far. Tell us a personal story because there are a lot of enterprises that don't allow AI yet. And so not every job allows AI. If you work in the federal government, they may not have turned on AI yet for you yet. So all of your use cases will be personal. That's okay. What it tells us is that you are trying to learn. And that's what we're looking for. So I would say in the job space, if you come in and tell me a whole lot about AI, I'm gonna think that you are probably not telling the truth.
Yeah, I would totally agree. What's going to make you stand out in an interview is not how much you know about AI. It's how you put your best self in that interview, right? That's what's really going to set out. And to Jameeka's point, we're going to be looking for stuff like, coachable. Can they learn? Or do they have future leadership that you see in them and stuff? That's what you're going to see in an interview. And when it comes to and some of you not going won't get to interview because I'm telling you. We have a CISO position out there, and we've received, even through, and this is crazy, it's all going through a recruiter that we have. But for some reason, I've received at least a good 100 emails from people that want to apply for the job, right? Their introduction, their resume, and all that, and it looks exactly the same, right? Which tells me they're all using the same thing and they're not putting their own self into it. And if you're not going to put yourself into it, like Jameek just said, all of those got taken out. Like, yeah, well, we're not calling, like, and I made sure that, if you see these people, immediately remove them, right? Because you're not putting the effort into it. So it's really about what Jameek said is how you bring your best self forward, right? That's what we're going to be looking at in interviewing is how you do that, not how well you did a prompt and how well you got that in there. Because we can see that and we can see things that are repeatable because you're not the only one, right? And so if you're using something someone else is using and you didn't put yourself into it, we're gonna see it right away.
Well, I
And
also think this, as my team is seeing a lot of the same resumes and a lot of the same information. And honestly, it's blaring. So I think the question was really around how do you stand out because everybody's using AI. Everybody is
Right.
using AI. Shame on them for not using it to enhance their writing as opposed
There
to
you go.
writing for them, right? That is a problem. And we are kicking those out. And I think what is important is that you put in what it is you want. Before there was AI, you had to write it yourself. Now you have a tool that can help you sound very eloquent. But what you don't want to do is put things in there because AI will tell you who you are. Put that in there, and then you get to an interview and you really don't know that information. So we're
yep,
seeing a lot of that, not just in that
Yep.
technology, but across the board where AI makes you out to sound like you're Jerry or Jameeka, and you're absolutely not. You're you're coming in as an entry level, or you haven't had these experiences. So I would just say, as the HR expert on the call, uh, stop. Really, just use it to
Stop.
enhance your, yeah. Stop.
and you know where else this is showing up? And I actually posted about this on social media and people's how they use AI in their personal branding. I believe that your personal brand is your humanity, and that deserves a graphic designer. That deserves someone who can work with you, a human,
Yeah.
and who can maybe work with an AI technology, but they're a designer. What's happening right now is that everybody's stuff looks the same because they're using Chat GPT because that's what it is. I know because I use it as well to create graphics for them. And so all these graphics look the same. And people don't realize, no, we can tell this person is going to spend the time. So what it cannot do is mimic the authenticity of human.
Yep,
It can't
exactly.
do that. And so when we use it for a resume, when we use it to do things with our brand, it is supposed to help you enhance. I'm a bad speller. It corrects my poor spelling. It makes my run-on sentences not run-on sentences. It does those things for me, but they're my words. And so that is what we have to remember with AI is that it's human-like. It is not human. And it is our mind is nuanced and we're unique. And we want to hold on to those unique things. And so when you ask AI to do something, AI pattern matches. It doesn't have original thoughts. It's looking at the content of what it has, what it knows, and it starts to match patterns. So as soon as it sees something similar about your uniqueness, it takes that into its catalog, but then it's going to give that to somebody else too.
Thank
Yep.
you, Erica. Do we have
Yeah.
other questions? This is
We
great.
do. We do. That was a great discussion. So, Angela has a great question here. She says, I'd like to see nonprofit organizations update their bylaws and standard operating procedures so that some positions, such as recording secretary, treasurer, parliamentarian, can be more efficient by using agentic AI. How do you suggest that we go about transforming our volunteer based nonprofit organizations so that volunteers can work more efficiently?
Oh, geez.
That is interesting. Um, So the problem for nonprofits to do that first and foremost is that you are implementing, and you said nonprofits, you didn't say corporate board or something like that. Nonprofits don't really have the money to do something like that, right? So they don't want to dictate to people when you're coming on the board, that hey, by the way, you need to do this. And usually nonprofits aren't bringing people on the board to be more efficient. They're usually bringing people on board that have access to money. So if you're going to a nonprofit, that's really not what nonprofits are going for. They're going after somebody that can come in and say they got access to money or they got influence to money. That's usually when people come to, especially when it comes to nonprofits. That's usually when you get invited to those nonprofit boards is for that. But usually when it comes to that's the problem is they don't really have the money to dictate to people say, hey, by the way, we're going to give you a license to use this, and it becomes very personal at that point when you ask people to say to get on this board, you have to use this type of AI, right? That's a little different.
What I'll add to that, though, is when we think about documentation. So you mentioned bylaws, you mentioned standard operating procedures. The way
Hmm.
that you would do those updates is you plug the existing bylaws in there. And one of the things that I do, I'll use cyber for example. One of the things that I'll do because I have to write policies a lot. And so, for example, I work at a company that is regulated by HIPAA, which is Healthcare Information Portability and Accountability Act. So what I will do is I will plug the existing policy in there and I will say, this is the new HIPAA regulation. Does my current policy align with HIPAA regulation? So you would do the same thing for bylaws. Do my
Yep.
current bylaws align with this mission of the organization, this? And so it's going to write new bylaws for you. And it's going to align in the way that you tell it to align. So that is the way that I think you can use bylaws. The other thing that you can do is you can plug all of the bylaws changes in there. So as the bylaws get revisions, you can plug them all in there and say, give me a history of the revisions of the bylaws and tell me what might be missing for this nonprofit. It's going to write them for you. And so that is a way in which, and I know that standard operating procedures are difficult. Same thing. You're going to look at it. It is helpful if you can find a set of standard operating procedures that are already written that you need to update or that are close to yours. You're going to plug those into AI and say, I need a standard operating procedure for this organization for this task. It's going to write it for you. And then you go in and you iteratively update it to make sure that it's accurate for the organization. So it's the same thing I said about performance evaluations. Give it some data, let it do its job, then iterate on what it gives you. And that will, I think, help create efficiencies across the nonprofit segment.
Thank you for that. So, kind of just transitioning into a younger person that might be coming into the workforce. So, if a student is graduating in 2026 and they could spend the next 6 months building only one AI agent to showcase to employers, what should that agent do and what skills would it demonstrate?
I think
Oof.
what the agents do, it should be based on your expertise. right?
Yeah.
So, for example, my expertise is cybersecurity. And so if I were looking for a job in cybersecurity, I would be trying to create an agent that showcased my skill sets around cybersecurity. I'm an executive, so it might be a board deck for me. I might say create a board deck that helps the organization to understand the history of my career and work I've done with the board. For you, if you're an engineer, you might want to have it create something that will demonstrate your coding capability. If you work in finance, you might want to ask the agent to help you quickly synthesize financial spreadsheets. And that's the thing that you show to your employer. Hey, I've created this agent. It synthesizes financial data, and then it creates a deck based on that data with bullet points that you should know. So the way that AI is helpful at work is when there is expertise that goes with the AI. That's when it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, same. I was going to say the same thing. So yeah, exactly. It's very particular to your area of expertise. If you're going to use it to impress, like coming into an interview, you want to impress someone. Absolutely what Jameeka said.
Okay. I'm going to combine two questions here. So, could you describe the major differences between the three major AI platforms that we've talked about so far? And what are each of your favorite platforms?
So I'm going to try to keep this super high level. My favorite platform is Claude. Why? Because Anthropic is trying to be ethical in how they put AI out into the world. So I actually had access to Claude Fable model, which is the new model that is a downgraded model of the Mythos model, which can hack everything in the whole world. They understood that, and so they didn't release Mythos. What they release was Fable. I like that. I like that they are trying to be ethical. So that's my favorite. Now, from a creative perspective, ChatGPT does a lot more artwork. It does a lot more creative things. Um, Claude it does financial calculations. It looks at data, reads data really well. So I would think that Claude is my favorite for that. If I'm trying to do design work, I'm probably going to use ChatGPT. And then just day-to-day integration, I think it's probably Gemini because I'm a Google person right now. And so Gemini is fully integrated already into my cell phone, but I also do have Claude, some of the agentic functions from Claude as well. So I don't necessarily have a favorite. Using all of them to get whatever I need to be done.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. So for me, again, I got Chat GPT, I got Canva, I got,
Oh, yay, Canva.
uh, Copilot, and not only do I got Copilot at work, but I got Copilot on my own personal tenant because I got my own personal tenant as well, for my consulting, stuff that I do. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I use whatever's right next to me at the time when I need it. So I don't really have a favorite, right? Except for my phone because Siri, Apple doesn't have it, a native one like, Gemini, but you use Siri in conjunction with ChatGPT. And so if I'm on my phone, I'll use it off, that's the one I'm going to use. If I'm sitting in front of my, work computer, it's going to be, for me, it's just going to be Copilot because I'm doing business stuff or whatever. If I'm sitting over on you know, my desktop over there, then it's going to be whatever I'm working on, whether it's design or something like that. I'll, use it for that. But again, y'all, I'm a Gen Xer. So, and I'm a CIO. I am really good at getting others. Hey, can you do this for me? So,
The
and then they
tribe of the
do
willing.
it. Right? So, but yeah.
Our next question is, how can a person feel secure when using AI on your personal devices? Jerry, we just talked about this, and keep your information private from big corporations, which have already stolen personal information from individuals.
Mm.
I mean, you
Yeah,
can't.
that's a great question because I'm gonna tell you, uh, this is so funny to me because I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine. Some of us, I'm originally from Chicago, grew up, a little bit in Chicago, moved to South Bend, St. Louis, and I have no problem saying this. I'm a hood dude, right? So that just so I happen to be a CIO. And one of the things I remember growing up, remember when cell phones first came out? Remember Nextels, and then everybody started saying Nextel was owned by FBI, and so everybody started
Jerry,
not.
I don't know if they remember that, but okay.
Well, still, so we had these cell phones like that, and so this reminds me of that, and so I'm very wary about which one I'm using. Like, I don't use Claude. I don't like using Claude. I don't like using the other because I just feel like it takes information from me for free, and I don't like giving information for free. I'm like, pay me for my stuff, right? And so usually I try to like keep it inside, keep it inside of something I know it's not gonna go anywhere, right? At least that's what I tell my mind. Is it going somewhere? Probably. but that's how I train my mind around it and stuff. But this one of those things where you just have to be conscious, kind of like your credit card or something like that. Think about where you swipe in, think about what you're doing. You got to keep that whole thing in mind the whole time. It's a different world now compared to what it used to be.
And let me just say this, my expertise is cybersecurity. You can't. If you like you just I'm gonna be honest because I'm like, look, y'all, this is and one of
Hmm.
the things that's happening, we call AI is a frontier technology. It's new. When I said like I say I don't know a lot, there's a lot that I don't know. But what I do know is that it is truly the wild, wild west right now. And so you should not expect, and there are ways to use it that I think are safer. So for example, it's one thing to use it in the browser, it's another thing to download it on your computer. So you would want to use it in the browser. There are ways to tell it not to use my information to train the model. Do I think that that actually is working? No, I don't. I think that everything you put in there is going to be used to train the model. And so this is one of those things that you have to make a decision about how much personal information about yourself that you want to put into a large language model. But I'll also add this, working in cybersecurity, dealing with hackers, and also spending a part of my time on the dark web, your information's already out there.
It's
And
out
not
there.
not because it was stolen, but not because corporations don't handle it properly, but it is a lucrative thing to steal personal information from organizations. It's very lucrative. To be on the dark web, a profile with all of your information sells for about $125. It's a lucrative game. And so this is one of those areas that it's out there now. What can you do? You want to protect your information to the best of your ability, but even when you do that, understand that other organizations are not handling our information with care. And so every time you give your information to a for profit, a nonprofit, if you don't understand what they do with the information,
Yep.
it likely will end up somewhere it shouldn't. The other thing is that do not give your information to organizations where you don't have the right to delete. So it should be very easy to delete. It should be a button there. You shouldn't have to email them. That is where we really, I think, lose a lot of our information. And then finally, if you do not have some sort of watch on your identity, you have to. Because ultimately, the nature of the game that we're in now is all of our information. You should suspect that it's out there and not out there in like, even in the databases where they sell information, that has changed. But I think there's that information, and then there's what's on the dark web. The dark web is the scarier part, and
Hmm.
it's already out there. I hate to tell y'all that, but it
Yeah.
just is.
Yeah, and to her point, that's why I say you got to just really be thoughtful about this. My wife is a lawyer, big law firms and stuff like that, and I remember, I was going through something, and I don't read documents like that. It's so long, right? And especially in the tech field, you get the EULAs and stuff, and they're so long and all that, and then you get to the point where it says data, and then you got to understand what it means by how it's using your data and all that. I gave up on that years ago because I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to fight this because I use my credit card everywhere I go. So if they want to find me, it's not hard. They probably know exactly where they know exactly what time I'm going to the grocery store every day, right? Like they know this type of stuff. And so to Jameeka's point, one of the things I did, I have two watchdogs looking at over my stuff at all times. Experian and Equifax are the two that I got looking at my stuff at all times. And those things sends me alerts, hey, by the way, we just found some more information in the dark web about you, and stuff. And so, so now I don't care, I'm like, whatever. And one of the biggest things I did was anytime I sign up for something that's asked me to create an account, I create it and I do multi-factor immediately. So that
Yes.
way, no matter what, because I take the stance of they're gonna hack it as soon as I give it to them. So I might as well do the multi-factor. That's just my thought on it. And the more you talk to Jameeka about this, because I'm not a CISO, the more you talk to her about this, the more scared you'll get. And so I try not to talk to her about it.
And
So,
what is multi-factor authentication? So
yeah.
we have username and password. That's two-factor authentication. Username, password. You should be wary of any website that only asks you for a username and password. Multi-factor is facial recognition, biometrics, using a one-time PIN. So when you think about what you can do to protect yourself, if you sign up for something that collects information about you and there's only a username and password, they're going to get hacked. They are going
Yep.
to get hacked. It is going to happen. And so you should be looking for, and even though, yes, I know it takes more time, set up the biometrics, use the facial recognition to log in, use the one-time passwords, use the passkey, use your fingerprint. That is multi-factor authentication. And those are the things that are phishing resistant and really hard to break into the middle of. And so that's one of the things that you can protect yourself. The other thing is there are companies like Privacy 360. They
Hmm.
monitor
Hmm.
for your information on the dark web and they send cease and desist, they send kill notices, they send takedown notices on your behalf. These services, some of them are not super expensive. So if you're really, really concerned, you want to look at a service like a Privacy 360 where it's looking
Yep.
for your name everywhere. And they have family plans as well, where they can monitor you
Yep.
and your family. And so if you are someone who has, I used to have a top secret security clearance. How I showed up on the internet was incredibly important to me because I knew that the folks who do clearances would be looking. And so I did used to use the service just to make sure that my information on the internet was accurate. If I found anything that was inaccurate, I would send an email and say, take this down. And they are required to respond to you. If an organization doesn't respond to you, it's a problem. And so you want to make sure that you do that. But companies like Privacy 360, there are a few out there that do this kind of work. And if you're very concerned, you should use one like that.
Yep.
LifeLock's another one. They are as well. Let me just add one more thing. When you get those notices in the mail that says a company has been compromised, one of the things they almost always do is offer you free identity monitoring. So this is where you can get these kinds of services without having to pay for them. Open up one of those envelopes, figure out which one you want to use, and use those free services. And normally it's for 12 or 18 months. So that's the other thing that you can do to get these kinds of services for free.
Thank you. That was such great information of how we can protect ourselves and do the best that we can to at least monitor what's going on with our data. Our next question is, as an educator, how do we promote the use of AI platforms to streamline work for educators, but discourage student use for doing their coursework, especially when higher education and some other platforms can detect it?
Oh my God, y'all, listen. I had a scary moment with my daughter. Oh my God, this had been a few weeks ago. So, my daughter, got really good at school at the beginning, the year or whatever. She was always really good, but then she got real efficient at it. So I asked her, I said, I said, hey, but come here. She's 16. I said, hey, how are you? You said you were struggling with this. How did you become so good at it? She was like, oh yeah, Dad, I just, remember when I told you to get me an iPad instead of using the laptop that the school gave me? I was like, yeah. She said, this is what I do. And she literally showed it. She takes a picture of the notes, it automatically summarizes it for her, and then it gives her the step by step, totally different on how to do a math problem than what they showed her on the board, and she understood, and she would ask it. And so it learned from her how she learns math. And so it does it in a way that she learned math a lot easier and stuff, right? That is a hard thing when a student learns how to use Gen AI to become better at education, and then having the educators having to keep up with this. That is a very hard thing to do. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't really have a good answer for that because I'm not in education. I just know that I see the teachers and how they struggle with this and how they're trying to keep up with the students in this. And it is something to watch to see how they're like, man, how are they keeping up with it? Like, yeah, Dad, they're not. That's what I get. And my daughter goes to like a really good school here, but again, they're like, they're not keeping up. And so that is the future, right? That is that thing that Jameeka was saying earlier. Teachers are going to have to learn how to keep up. Teachers, and unfortunately, they're at the front line of it because they got these young, men and women, young ladies and young men coming in here, and they're eating it up, right? And how do they keep up with it? That is a hard thing for them to do. So,
And I think one of the ways that it will assist is like the natural language processing is going to assist. But I think to Jerry's point, like we don't know. We don't know. I think again, teachers are probably going to solve their own problem better than we ever could tell you how to solve for this. We do know that we've built from a infosec perspective, we've built in systems that so AI can detect AI. It really can, and it does it very well, right? And so I think that the solve for this is probably going to come from the expertise of the educator community. And so if you figure something out, let us know because we don't know yet.
No, I just remember thinking, imagine that the Gen AI is teaching better than the teacher. The teacher can't teach my daughter well enough, right? And but this thing does. She doesn't even listen to the teacher. She just takes that picture at the end and it teaches her. Like, geez. Like kind of wish I had that when I was a kid. No, we had to listen and write notes. So
Are we going to reteach cursive? Because that seems to be,
that's
really taking a
gone.
generation out.
That's gone.
Pretty funny.
At the
Uh,
DMV signing their driver's license with an X, like,
right.
okay.
Well, that is our last question. So I think Jameeka, you said it best. This is a frontier technology. There's still so much to learn, and I want to thank you all both for your time. Can we just give them some virtual round of applause, some hearts? Thank you so much for your time. And so, for all of you, thank you so much for joining us. I want to extend my gratitude to our host, Shelby Bogney, and our inspirational guests, Jameeka Green, Aaron, and Jerry Walker. Thank you for this outstanding and timely presentation. I think it was very much so, considering all of the questions we received tonight. If you have any additional questions or would like to connect with Shelby, I've included her contact information in the chat and on the screen. And if you're not already a member of Shelby's Sticky Notes on Facebook, I encourage you to join for more career advice that truly sticks. On behalf of our Sticky Note team, thank you for spending time with us this evening. Have a wonderful night.